Welcome to the Real Estate Red Flags podcast, the things no one tells you before or after you buy. I'm Joshua, ISA certified arborist and ASCA consulting arborist, joined by Ian, who's the owner of IM Home Inspections. Let's get into it. We have Jason here joining us, and Jason, you are out of Texas, is that correct?
Yes, sir. I'm out of New Braunfels, Texas, which is between San Antonio and Austin.
Okay, great. Yeah, because Ian and I are from California, so it's always great to have people on and from other parts of the country and just kind of hear how things differ. But anyway, I guess just give us an overview of your business and what you guys do exactly, and we'll go from there.
Well, I work for Wolfman Chimney Fireplace out of New Braunfels, Texas. We have multiple locations throughout southern Texas, in the Austin region and San Antonio region. That's basically our area that we cover. We do fireplace, chimney, everything from inspections and sweeping to full repairs, full rebuilds. Unlike the West Coast there in California, we also can do mason up rebuilds from the ground. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you were out in California previously, and that's how you met Ian. I guess you guys used to work together on some projects. Is that right?
Kind of. Ian, you want to touch on that?
Yeah, no, because I run a home inspection business. He ran a fireplace inspection business, and we met online first, just sort of like, oh, hey, on Facebook, like, here's another local business. And then I was at a house, and he pulled up, and I'm like, wait, I know you, I know that logo. And I was like, oh, yeah, I know you, I know that logo. And then we started, like, realizing, like, we had connected online much earlier. And then, as it goes, you just end up seeing each other at a lot of different events, at a lot of different inspections. And, I didn't really have a good fireplace guy I felt really confident about recommending. So I just started going, you know what? You're my fireplace guy from now on. And so I started recommending him to be the fireplace specialist for inspections that we did. So then I started seeing him a lot. And then I was trying to plot on how to hire him away, but he moved to Texas on me.
Oh, that's funny. Well, I guess I'm curious, Jason, how did you get into this line of business in the first place? Because I feel like it's a very niche sector. So I'm definitely interested to hear that.
Yeah, it is. As life goes, some people tend to reinvent themselves, and I've done that. Prior to this, I did contract procurements for nonprofit companies that supported people with intellectual disabilities, and it just wasn't working anymore. And I had a friend who was in the industry of fireplace and chimneys, and he said, "Hey, come on a ride along with me and see if you like it." And I worked for him for a little while, and I enjoyed it a lot. I did inspection work for him. I didn't do the repair side. At times I would, but my goal, not my goal, I was hired as an inspector prodigy. I was learning. And then I'd say about a year and a half after working with him, I said, hey, I think I want to start my own inspection only company. And that's what I did in California. So I ran into it because I wanted to change, and someone said, hey, come take a look at this. And I'm a people person, and I like being out there, and I was tired of the mundane Byzantine process of contract procurements. It wasn't quite as fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I guess so our goal on this podcast is really for people that are in the real estate transactions, if someone's buying a home, for example, we want to point things out that they should be aware of going into the transaction so that things aren't missed. For example, in regards to a chimney or a fireplace, from your experience, what are some of the more common issues that you see, maybe that most people would not be aware of when you're running into an inspection?
Here's the biggest thing that I'm seeing, and now that I am with a company that does it all, not just inspections, is that we get a lot of phone calls after someone has purchased the house for us to go out and do a chimney cleaning, which we don't do without a full inspection. And then I'm finding that there are problems that were happening in the fireplace that the home inspector wouldn't have seen and or didn't have the education to know about it. that's the biggest concern that I see happening now, is that people aren't bringing out the inspector during the real estate transaction. Where on the West Coast, that's predominantly how chimney people get work, is through the real estate transaction. Out here, it's more through the homeowner. We don't do that much real
Okay.
estate, but it is required to be done during a transfer of property, whether it's a new renter or selling and buying a house. It is a requirement to have the chimney inspected. The Chimney Safety Institute of America talks about it, and the National Prevention Fire Program Association, which governs, it's part of our governing agencies, it's outlined in their standards that you bring someone out on the sales of a transaction to do a full inspection of the system, which is called a level 2 inspection. Whereas, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Ian, that the home inspector is doing kind of more of a overlook and a basic overview. And most of the time you're going to see in that report, bring out a qualified professional to do a level 2 inspection. Is that
Correct.
right?
Yeah, as a home inspector, we have home inspector standards that do cover fireplace and chimney, which is essentially the same as a level 1, which is basically visual only, flashlight, whatever we can see from standing, in the living room, or, getting down on our knees looking in the fireplace, and whatever we just notice when we're on the roof. So it is not, and yes, all our reports say, what Jason said, the National Fireplace Association recommends that you have a level 2 at every transaction. When I'm looking at a fireplace, I'm looking for, anything really obvious, any cracks, cracks in the brick, any masonry falling out of the brick, anything where I can say, yeah, now you really need a level 2.
Got it.
On prefab fireplaces, the metal ones, it's a little more tricky to find stuff to really point out. But there's always stuff, and sometimes those are cracks too, depending on the type of fireplace. So yeah, we're always doing the basics, and we always have a recommendation of the basic repairs from what we can see. But we always do recommend you get a level 2 for that more in-depth repair, or more in-depth inspection. Sorry.
Got it.
Right.
I
So,
I didn't. Sorry, go ahead.
picking up off of what Ian does, is we do everything that Ian looks at, but we also have a trained eye to look at specific things. And with those manufactured fireplaces and other fireplaces called direct vent fireplaces, we're also looking at the manufacturer requirements for that fireplace, because they're not just generic in those fireplaces. The biggest difference I can say is we run a camera through the flue system, ensuring that it's safe to operate. And there's a lot of nasty stuff that can happen in there. Heat can transfer out the system, causing framing to combust potentially.
Mhm.
We also have, silent things happening, such as carbon monoxide, carcinogens that can escape that system, that are very dangerous. And without running a camera through the flue system, as a homeowner, you have no idea what that condition is. Beyond what's required for the real estate transaction, it is also recommended through the Chimney Safety Institute of America and some of our standards that you have your fireplace inspected annually. They're living bodies like ours. What it looks like today doesn't mean it's going to look like that in 6 months.
That's super interesting. Honestly, I had no idea. There were various levels of inspections when it comes to that. But what you're saying is super important. It seems like a lot of it could be potentially very dangerous safety issues. So I could definitely see why everyone would want to do that as part of their inspection. Um, it's kind of funny because I'm an arborist, so I'm a tree guy. And when you mentioned the level 1, level 2 inspection, we actually have something similar. It's called the same thing. Um, we don't have to touch on it too much, but essentially a level 1 is like a very brief, I'm looking at a tree, almost like walking by it and having a look at it. Level 2 is I'm spending a considerable amount of time looking at it. I'm looking around the whole entire base of the tree. I'm looking at the whole canopy and essentially taking down whatever I can see. And then there's even a level 3 inspection where there are tools where you can actually see what's going on inside the tree. So that was just interesting for me to hear that, there's various levels to it. Um, I also, I guess to your point, whenever I go anywhere, I'm always just as an arborist, I'm naturally interested in trees. So I'm wondering if when you're going places, when you go to people's house, can you not help yourself but want to look at their chimneys and fireplaces or?
We went out to dinner last night at a new
Uh-huh.
place in town, and they had a patio fireplace there. And I looked outside, and I'm, oh, that's an inside burner on an outside patio. It's already rusting. Of course, I'm doing that. We
Yeah,
go rent a hotel, and I'm looking, or an Airbnb, and I look at these problems on this fireplace. And then my wife goes, "You're going to light it? I'm going to burn the heck out of this stuff." You know, I have to say that you can't help it when you go
yeah,
by a
you can't.
house, or even you go by a house and say, "Hey, we did that job. Look how cool that
Yeah.
looks." You know? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. If I'm ever involved in like a tree pruning project, whenever I drive by, I'm always like curious. I want to see how the tree's looking, how's it responding to the pruning work that was done. And Ian, I'm sure you kind of feel the same way. You go over to someone's house or you're at any commercial building and you see stuff that I'm sure catches your attention. That's just the nature of our professions is we can't help ourselves but to notice these things as professionals.
Yeah, the first time, anytime we get like an Airbnb or something, like the first thing I'm doing, I'm like, is there GFCIs in the bathroom?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny.
I had a question. I was going to wait to the end, but because we already touched on it. Um, One question I get asked a lot, but I want Jason to answer this, is I get asked a lot, well, you're a home inspector, you're a really smart guy. Why don't you just buy the camera, shove up the fireplace, and do the level two yourself? I want Jason to answer it for me so that I can.
Well, first and most of all, it's not job security for me, right? No. So the home inspector does a lot. Okay. And from my point of view, what they have on their plate and the ongoing training that is required for the knowledge of fireplace and chimneys is as much, if not more, than the other niche industries that come out of what Ian does. So the termite guys, they've got their things and stuff. For a home inspector to do everything, including fireplace chimneys, one, it's not time conducive for them. Two, having the niche gives you a specialty and a concentration on so much knowledge base that I don't know how home inspectors keep their knowledge base already. Um, when it also comes out, you have two different type of chimney and fireplace inspectors. You have an unbiased one and a biased one. So the unbiased one is an inspector only, and that's what I used to do with Ian. Now I work for a company that provides proposals, but it's really important to get all those pieces together because Ian can't provide the proposal or repair for a fireplace and chimney, and they're going to have to seek someone out who's going to say, well, we're not going to do it off of his report anyways. We want to come out and look at
Mhm.
it. And it wouldn't be right for me to look at another report without putting my own eyes on the chimney unless I vetted them out. And it's just a lot to do for Ian to take all those responsibilities on. It's about an hour to 2 hours to do one fireplace inspection if you're doing the full proper job. Now, there are guys that are doing them in 20, 30 minutes, but I can guarantee they're not looking at everything they're supposed to be looking at. If you're not there at a minimum for an hour to 2 hours, you're not doing the proper inspection.
That's
Did that
that's
answer that, Ian, or did you want to lead me a little bit more down another way?
I mean, to me, it's a very specialized trade.
Yeah.
Jason snuck me into a fireplace inspection, online group, and I just hang out in the background because I try not to point out that, like, hey, I'm not really a chimney guy. Um, and I watch the conversations they have, and I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about half the time. Like, their knowledge is so specialized and so deep and so intense on, different manufacturers and different eras and different. Just it is, yeah, very, very deep. And as home inspectors, We are generalists. We know a little about a lot of different things, and the fireplace specialists know a lot about one thing far deeper than I can even comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
And the
good.
education and the ongoing education is one of the most important things that um, I want to point out. That yes, you can learn how to do fireplace and chimneys, and you can be a contractor for that. But if you're not staying up on current things, you're stuck in the old. And even though the codes don't change that much, you still want to be up on the technologies that we can use to repair things. There are so many ways that we couldn't do things 20 years ago that we can do today on the repair side. And that knowledge base is not only the inspector, it's the network you have, a network of nationwide inspectors that you can pull to. There's times I call somebody in Kansas, I call people in California, I call people in Georgia, go, hey, I ran into this. They call us for that information too, because it's almost impossible to hold it all in your head. Maybe only one gentleman in the industry has that. Um, but yeah, it's that network and the ongoing training that comes with the specialists.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, it's I think you just have to always be willing to learn and always feel like there's more to learn so that you can always be making improvements. Because if you're not doing that, you're gonna fall behind and you're gonna end up costing your clients. So that's a really good point. You mentioned you'll call people around the different areas. I guess I'm curious, have you noticed anything or what are the differences that you've noticed between chimneys and fireplaces in California versus Texas or even in other parts of the country that you're aware of? Are there any differences or are they pretty much?
Most definitely, because of
Yeah.
the knowledge that happened after '94 earthquake of Northridge in California, and what they have put in place since then for seismic activity and seismic retrofitting. It's night and day compared to where I'm at in Texas because we don't rock and roll. It was a learning curve when I came out here, but yet the base that I had from there helped me here a lot. Um, but it is a lot different out here than out there because of the fact that we don't have a seismic zone like you do in California. We don't have the broken chimneys that you have in California. We still get them due to soil, right? But we don't have them due to seismic activity like you do in California. Um, Most of your Mason fireplaces in the '94 earthquake, I don't have the numbers. I want to say maybe 40 to 50% of the earth of the chimneys were damaged to the point where they had to be rebuilt, and they weren't out there because we didn't know how to do them. And that's what Northwoods taught California was how to do seismic retrofitting. And what was happening with the heat transference nationwide was taught. We had so many open houses that even in a structure that was standing, that was brick and mortar, and it was open, we could see how the heat was leaving an uncoated fireplace and causing the wood to char. It hadn't lit yet, but it was on the verge of it. So nationwide, we learned stuff through Northridge of the amount of damage that happened to homes allowed us to definitely expand our knowledge base nationwide too.
That's interesting. Yeah. Um, that's great to hear. I guess I had another question in regards to so obviously fireplaces and chimneys are used seasonally. I don't think many people are using them in the summertime, but anyways, that brings me to are there any maintenance items that should be done for a chimney? And does that change if say it's unused for, I don't know, 6 or more months during the warm months, and then as it starts cooling off, is there anything that a homeowner should be aware of or should do prior to, starting to use it again to make sure it's working properly and safely?
Right. Well, the Chimney Safety Institute of America recommends, and then the standards that were held to through the National Fire Protection Association says every year you should have your fireplace inspected to see if it needs to be cleaned. That's a very important thing to be said there. It doesn't say swept every year. it says inspected every year. So even if I'm not using the fireplace and I haven't used it, should I have it inspected? Yes, because we have things that are called sudden unusual incidents that can happen. Okay, you can have a large hailstorm come in here and do damage to your chimney structure in South Texas. You can have an earthquake in Oklahoma do damage to a chimney. You can have an earthquake in California, lightning strikes. Even excessive heat can damage chimneys. I'm very curious to see what we learn about the heat damage that occurred in the Palisades to the structures, and what we learned from from the exterior, what happened to the systems. And that'll all come out eventually when we do the investigations and stuff. Yeah, it is an annual thing that should be done, is an inspection. Now, if you're not using your fireplace at all, do you need to have it inspected? Well, there are areas that can contribute to water entry if you're not using it, the chimney structure. So I have to say you should have it looked at every year.
Yeah, that's wise, especially when you're dealing with things that could be safety related. So that's really good to know. I guess I'm sure people would be curious, and I'm sure it varies based on the size and location. But what is a chimney and fireplace inspection typically cost?
It ranges where you're at in location and your business model, really. Some of the guys that are like when I was a one truck shop, my overhead wasn't as much. If you're just in the inspector's business, it might be a little pricier because that you don't have the repair side to help with that. Here in Texas, we charge $388 for a sweep and inspection. Just an inspection is $288. And that gets you the report with photographic evidence of what's going on in the fireplace, recommendations of a repair. If the customer would like for us to provide a proposal or repair, we'll do that. But they're buying the report and the information in that report to be able to have it and say, this is the condition of my fireplace. We're really look at the health, the safetiness, and preservation of that fireplace is our goal.
Got it. Okay, and you mentioned that an inspection typically can take up to a couple hours even for that. So I imagine, I guess I'm just curious kind of what your days and schedule looks like. Do you typically have like a series of or like a few inspections lined up in a day, or does it, I'm sure every day is a little bit different. I guess
Yeah,
yeah.
my inspectors average, if not more, 3 inspections a day.
Okay.
In the territory that we cover. I am considered a backup inspector in the busy season. Otherwise, I'm the quality assurance manager here. I'm still involved with the inspectors, and I still hold my inspection credentials. But they usually have 3 inspections a day. On slow days, some of them might have 2. Priority, goes to location. We do have different locations throughout Texas. But we stay pretty busy down here. And yeah, yeah. Surprisingly for South Texas, too.
Yeah. That's probably a good thing that you guys don't really want to pack their schedules too much because I'm sure if you put too much on someone's plate, that they may want to rush things and not spend enough time that is really needed in order to do the job properly. So
And you just nailed it on the nose.
yeah,
We have found that 3 inspections is a sweet spot for quality of inspection.
mm,
4 gets a little bit rushed, but in the long days of summer down here, some of our guys are willing, and the customers are willing to have you there until 6 o'clock. They're willing to go do the work.
yeah,
But we also have to account for travel time. Our inspectors aren't in every office. We have a location and we have offices and they're up and running, but you can only have so many inspectors because, again, it's such a niche. The train up of an inspector through our company is very intense. They have to be working in the field before they become an inspector. So our expectations as a company are some of the highest I've ever seen in the industry to become the inspector. Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
I guess that's something that Ian and I have talked about before is if someone is ready to hire someone or is interested in potentially hiring someone for a home inspection, or in this case, a chimney or fireplace inspection, what would you tell someone if they were looking for someone that they could trust to do a good job, and they're not gonna try to rush it and kind of just do whatever the bare minimum is? Like, what would you tell someone to look for in a company or a business that they're, looking to hire?
With regards to the real estate transaction, two pieces come into play that are very important. One is a quality real estate agent, and two is a quality home inspector. And if one of those two don't have the answer of where to go to, you have the wrong people. Okay, so if you have a new agent who has a good home inspector, because they've been mentored to use this home inspector, that home inspector should have somebody they trust to say, hey, you can vet out whoever you want, but this is who I've seen around, and they're not going to point to say use this guy. The real estate agent will if they have the person.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my regulars out there for 4 or 5 years that they would call me out. Hey, come on out. We got this going on. Home inspectors, I get phone calls. Hey, Ian referred me, or said I should give you a call about a fireplace chimney inspection. In that transaction, the most important thing I do feel, though, is to have the fireplace inspector out when the home inspector's there too, because we bounce off each other. And then he has the information that I'm giving, and there's no gray areas of is this roofing or is this chimney. We decide, I'm commenting on all the flashing at the chimney. You can defer to me if you have that relationship with the home inspector. The odds are they're still going to put it in their report, but I'm letting them know these are the areas that I'm looking at that are those overlay areas of inspecting.
That's really interesting to hear. Ian and I have talked a lot about the importance of, if you're getting a home inspection, to attend it so that you can really kind of see how hard, the inspector is working, and you can pick up on little things that maybe won't be in the report. So, Ian, I guess, do you agree with what Jason was saying? I'm sure you do, but I guess
Well,
what are your
yeah, the problem is the guy referred everybody to move, so I don't have a. I know a couple, but like I don't.
yeah.
I have not rebuilt that relationship with somebody new yet. So
Hmm. Hey, well, if anyone's listening to this podcast and you're a chimney guy or fireplace guy in the LA area, you got to hit Ian up.
I
Yeah.
got a couple guys for you offline, and I'll send them to you.
all right, cool. I had a technical question because you mentioned you're constantly learning new things and new repair techniques and stuff you didn't have 10, 20 years ago. So I'm wondering, what are your feelings on the concrete cast fireplaces that we call ramparts? I don't know if you still
Okay,
have this in
so
Texas, but you had them all over Santa Clarita when you were up here.
yeah, it's called a cast in place, not a concrete cast. There are difference, and I'll tell you why. Because there's something new out that kind of crossed over. So there's a fireplace that is out west and in a couple of locations in the nation called a rampart, a precast fireplace, and it actually was shipped intact on a truck to the site at time of foundation pour when it dried, and it was the first thing erected. Um, and it's a great idea. Look, a fireplace looks like a chimney, or the chimney looks like a chimney. The fireplace looks like a fireplace. But unbeknownst to the manufacturers of these fireplaces, and there's more than Rampart. That's just the main brand. We call them Ramparts. There's damage that happened to these, and because it was in a cast, the damage wasn't able to be tested to be repaired. So there's a line of order of operations on how it goes through, who's responsible for the testing, and it fell back onto the manufacturer's recommendations on how to repair certain things. Well, there aren't any. Because to do that, you have to test that repair in a laboratory thousands and thousands of times. UL listing, Underwriter Laboratories does most of the testing. And there was no way to take these fireplaces and put them into a laboratory. They're in houses. So a lot of times people out west got a sticker shock value, and I'd come out and say there's a little crack in the insulation plate. It's the equivalent of a breastplate in a fireplace, but in this fireplace it's called something else. And I have to talk to them about, here is the lines of how it cannot be repaired and why. And it's just a little crack. But we do have evidence that this crack has ran heat through the rebar of the system and has caused structure fires in the past and or drafting fires. So what may seem like a little, oh, just patch it up, isn't a proper repair for that area. And even though there may be a repair that works, most companies in Los Angeles that in California that are reputable know that it's not an approved repair, so they don't do it. And there are multiple areas in that fireplace that are not repairable that fail. I think the an article to look at, you can type in a Rampart fireplace and the name Dale Febb, Febb. He is one of our trainers nationwide, and he has a wonderful article describing all about the Ramparts. And if you're in an area that has them, I know California, I want to say New Hampshire, somewhere in the South even has them, I believe. You need to know these fireplaces. You need to know what you're getting into, because otherwise you're making bad recommendations.
Yeah, I always recommend if we see Rampart, even if it looks perfect, get a level 2 immediately.
Immediately.
Because if there is any damage, hidden damage, most guys, as far as I know, will not repair them.
Mm-hmm. And the saddest thing about it is some of these damages that happen in transport.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I do remember one client, their concrete, the whole Rampart chimney had actually detached from the house and it shifted about 2 inches away from the foundation. And I said, this is, really bad situation, very dangerous. And they just looked at me like, we're concrete contractors, we can fix that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to step back over here.
Yeah.
The report is red. I can't help with what you guys do with it afterwards, but I'm telling you, this is dangerous.
Yeah. Only a third of the fireplace is on the foundation. The rest has its own poured footing. And if that footing's not poured right, you can have separation. And also, it has rebar in a cast. And if that gets wet and starts to rust and expand, it can cause so much expansion that it may cause some tilting too. I haven't seen it, but I've seen that rebar expand and change the whole structure look. So I believe it could happen that way too. But I haven't ran into that.
Man, well, I'm learning a ton here with you guys, so I'm glad I'm part of it. Anyways, I, as an arborist, I always like to ask people, have you ever had a tree situation, or have you ever noticed a tree, I guess, overlap with or affect a chimney, or is there anything tree related that can cause potential chimney issues, or I guess vice
Most
versa?
definitely.
Yeah.
Most definitely. One of the basic rules of a chimney, and this is chimney 101 here, it's called the 3-2-10 rule. And it basically states that anything that is below the screen of the spark arrestor, 2 feet down with a 10-foot radius, that's combustible, can't be there. That includes a tree. And we run into situations here where we've got oaks and stuff, and they're beautiful oaks, and I just got to tell you what it is. I'm informing you what it is. I can't tell you what to do. But this is a potential for a fire hazard. And I know out there, a lot of times there's a potential for a fire hazard. Call your arborist, because out west, the arborists are involved in a lot of trees too. So.
Yep. Yeah, I tell people that all the time. If a house has a chimney, I'm looking for trees near it, and they have to be they have to have proper clearance from it. Otherwise, it's a fire hazard, especially in an area like California. That's a big red flag. So
Sure.
yeah. Well, Ian, do you have anything more you wanted to ask Jason? I'm done here. Yeah.
I've seen a lot of trees cause roof damage, and obviously we call out trees for being near a chimney. You ever seen a tree actually damage a chimney?
Certainly. I would say that it was maybe a shrub that, or a tree, I don't know what it was, but the brick and the mortar had separated due to water, freeze thaw, or deterioration of the joint, and somehow some seeds got in there. And I had a root running down the side of a chimney that literally is popping the bricks off a part of the way down, just a root going down there, expanding its way for water. And it's chasing the water as it settles through the chimney, because those bricks behind
Yeah.
you, if that's a brick
Yeah.
wall, one of those bricks can hold up to 1 3/4 cup of water.
Mm-hmm. It's always
So
the
that's a lot
roots.
of water.
It's always the roots. We've talked about it with sewer laterals,
Oh yeah.
finding tree roots in there. It's I guess it's more difficult because you can't really see them. So they're the ones that cause all the hidden issues. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's a crazy story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I have, Ian. And if you don't have anything, then I guess we would just ask you, Jason, where can people find you or get a hold of you, especially if they're in Texas?
Well, they can contact Wolfman Chimney Fireplace. They can do it online or by telephone call. We're at our New Braunfels, Texas, again in between San Antonio and Austin. We do travel outside of those zones too. But anybody can call here, ask questions. Ian knows how to get a hold of me. Don't hand out my cell phone, please. uh, and yeah, we're here to help the community at large. We're a teaching environment for the community and for our technicians. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you for the time. It was really nice meeting you, and I learned a ton today. So thank you.
awesome.
All right.
All right. See you
See you guys.
guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to the Real Estate Red Flags podcast. If you learned something today, share it with someone about to buy a home. They'll thank you later. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time.